All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So happy Sunday, everybody. I feel like it's been a minute since we've done a live, so I was kind of excited to get one scheduled. My schedule has been super crazy since I've moved, so I think I have things kind of in a stable state so I can get back to my routine and my flow. So we'll start off with a live, and then we'll try to get more lives going at least twice a month, if not weekly. As much as I can push it weekly, I will. So I think we have not a ticker, but what's been working for determining continuation of trades, indicators, levels, clouds. No worries. Good question. So we'll start with SoFi first. And we'll work our way through this list that I put together for us here. All right. So SoFi, I have it up on the monthly because I have been trying to look at charts and see how they're doing from a monthly standpoint after we had all these crazy pullbacks. So, one of the things that I'm looking at with SoFi was the monthly chart. Now, my chart, again, as most know, is the wolf chart. So it has all these indicators already built in. So what I'm following here is just what, based on my wolf chart system, what is the monthly telling me? One thing that was very interesting is that we did pull all the way back since January to a fair value gap that we had created, which was created in October. So when the stock shot up in October and we had a really nice continuation in November, we kind of got a top out, right? Like we didn't get to break any of those highs and hold. So the stock really did pull back. And so on the monthly, you can see we're in a pretty interesting spot where we've pulled back to my 12 EMA. And we shot right back up. So it's almost like we went all the way through this fair value gap. So SoFi came as low as 860 so far this month. And we're back up to what we closed at 1288. So nice bounce out of this fair value gap. And if you're not familiar with Fair Value Gap, there's some really great videos on YouTube that I don't mind sharing if you reach out to me. But basically, when you have this explosive move on the stock, there's going to be a fair value gap created. So when it comes back down, we're going to hit some buy orders that are just sitting here because they may have not all executed when the stock moves so fast up and suddenly. So that's all we did. I love fair value gap entries. So if you catch a nice stock coming back to a fair value gap and you start to see, so obviously we're in the monthly, we're not going to manage it too much at the monthly. We're going to kind of go back in a little bit. As you see a stock start to bounce from a fair value gap and give you a signal that, hey, we're going back up, that's a nice sign. And I wouldn't be too afraid of taking in SoFi shares, right? Like positions of shares. On the weekly, if you're following EMAs, right? If you follow your EMAs, what happened on the weekly is we came all the way back to my 200. And on the Wolf chart, we used a 200 weighted moving average. And so it was nice to see that SoFi came all the way back to the 200 and they held really nice. So good, good signal here. And so we're kind of climbing our way up and they have earnings. So what I've been watching is that volume for this stock has been picking up really good ahead of earnings. So I'm going to keep them on my watch list. I'm going to go to the daily to see what I'm looking for Monday. So for us here, trading on the off the wolf chart, one of the things that I noticed was that we got an arc here in April that gave us a signal that the trend was going into a reversal. And so this was quite a nice area to go ahead and start to trust grabbing some positions in SoFi, as long as this continuation was to keep happening. So it did a little bit of sideways trading for a few days, and then we got a pop. Then you get this nice gap up, and we've just been going. So right now on SoFi, I had an anchored VWAP, and I think that was from their last earnings. Well, no, it wasn't. I think this was just a high point that I must have placed up. I'm gonna take it off. Anchor VWAP. So with SoFi, what I'm looking for is if price is going to get above this this 200 weighted moving average EMA, we're already above my 12. And if it is, are we going to have a continuation to potentially test this order block, right? So if we hit this order block, we're going to hit some sellers or some selling pressure. And it's really going to be a matter of, do we break the high of this candle here where it created this order block? So the high of this candle would be 1390 and the low is 1345. So I can see us really potentially pushing up more in SoFi, at least to test in this range. But what we really want to see once it gets to like $13 is if they can break above 1390. So that's what I'll be watching for SoFi. And just as a day trade, if you're looking at it, I would personally measure the high and low of Friday's candle and play my range from there. And then an additional support from 1240, which is the low of this candle, is the high of this candle. So that's 1236. So I'll just be seeing if we hold price around here, maybe do a test of some support, but ultimately, do we get above this 200 and do we test this order block here? So my theory on SoFi is really just watching to see what type of movements we get Monday. They do have earnings on the 29th. So, and it's pre-market. So they'll get their earnings pre-market. We'll get to see how the market reacts to what they have to say and share with us. So that's my thoughts on SoFi. I'm going to watch the Friday candle and see how Monday's candle measures up against that one. And I'll just kind of probably make my moves based on that, whether it's up or down. Ideally, if they lose the low of this candle, they still need to hold a high of this candle. And you can kind of, so I'll just take this away for a second. So if you're just not on the wolf chart and you're just trying to visualize what we're looking at here, again, I measure the high and the low of a candle as one of my baselines. And then you can almost eyeball that we do have some resistance that we turn support here. And this is just a rough estimate. I'm not giving exact prices by candle, but you can see here that when we were above, we broke this significant area here and we held above it. We came back, closed the gap, but we didn't hold support well and we lost it. And so if you're just kind of looking at the price action, we do need a hold around here. I'll probably just measure it at the high of Thursday's candle, but it does look to be a significant area to watch for support for us to get the next leg up on SoFi. And yeah, if you bring it down, you'll see, you can kind of see how price is acting at this area right here, this line. So I'll be watching that as support. Let's see, that's SoFi. Let's see, I've had trouble with doing paper trading and putting in an order. I do owe a few people actually a video on paper trading. It just depends on what you're using to paper trade. Webull has a great paper trading feature, in my opinion. And I really like it because it feels like you're really actually placing actual trades. I think it's a little tricky to find it and understand it, but I will try to find a video that I can share out that kind of explains paper trading. I'm also not even comfortable yet with the Webull desktop. So honestly, because I've been so busy, I've just been placing my trades on my phone, including when I'm doing my paper trades. So it just depends on how you're paper trading. But I do think the Webull paper trading feature is my favorite so far. Let's see. I'm gonna move off of SoFi. The story is just looking to see if we hold support around here and do we break the high of Friday. Yes, you have a question on TradingView. TradingView is actually pretty easy to do. So to connect TradingView, you're just going to go to this paper trading feature right here. And then you click it. Okay, and so I did take some trades under futures last week. So what you do once you have your paper trading set up, you can actually do, oops, I didn't mean to pause recording. 1 second, let me get this out the way. Okay, so when you set your paper trading up in
Give me one before they go.
Trading View.
That's
Actually, let's
the
go
last one we
to.
have. I haven't had one. Give me
I'm gonna mute everyone
take the
just so.
pineapple one.
Let's see.
So everybody trying to talk.
Okay, so if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. I'm just gonna mute so we don't catch background. So if you just wanted to place a paper trade, we can go to let's try this. Let's go to
Yeah, that's what I was doing on Bitcoin, and then it didn't show any it just said no orders. So I was confused. I was on a Zoom with Sean and he was showing me, but when I tried to do it myself, it was just weird. It just didn't show up.
it is a little weird. So like I'm gonna uh, hold on one second. It is a little weird on trading.
Dressing. Let me get you some new pants. Cause I ain't not know it because I blew it up.
Yeah, no, you could just click either buy or sell, then you can put in your take profit and
Let's
your
go to trade, lady.
I'm sorry, can you mute everyone, please? It's very,
Yeah, I just muted everyone again. So
okay,
I'm sorry,
thank you.
whoever was speaking, you can keep speaking.
yeah, it's me, Nicole, the
Okay,
lady
Nicole.
who was
Okay.
helping before. How you doing? So yeah, that's what I did. And then I put like 0.99 and then I would click stop loss and put the stop loss in and then take profit and then click buy at the bottom. And then when I went to I guess show my orders, it said no orders. I didn't understand that one. That was weird.
Let's see. Okay, I don't know what I just did, but okay.
And
So
then I
you
got
set your
back.
take profit, you set your
Mhm.
stop loss. Let's just say we're gonna risk 1,000. Let's just do, we want to target, let's say we're gonna target 1,000 profit. And we're gonna just set our stop at 500
And then
loss.
you click buy, right?
Yeah, and you just click buy and it should execute. And then you can actually
No,
drag this
that didn't
if you
happen.
want.
That did
You
not
can
happen.
modify it.
Mm-mm,
To
that
play
did
with it
not.
a little bit more, you can set your stop loss. Like let's say I just want to swing this out of this zone, but I'm going to set my stop loss right below this order block just to see if we hold there. And I'll just let this rock out, right? Let's just see where it goes. But my take profit is going to be somewhere, I'll probably put it a little bit closer in just to make sure you secure profit. But yeah, that's all it is. And then you'll see it.
Nothing popped up for me. I don't know why.
You may have to share some screenshots with me in Discord to cover it a little bit more, but then you should start seeing it run. And that's your paper trading because it's really good if you're not confident during the trading week, guys, with your positions and your entries and exits. Paper trading, uh, stuff like Bitcoin on the weekend is really
Right.
beneficial to helping you. So, yeah, send me some screenshots if you still having issues. Maybe I can help you after.
Okay,
After
how do you do the screenshots when you're on a laptop on a Mac? So I wasn't sure how to do that.
you got me there. I'm
'Cause
on
the screen-
HP. I don't know.
Okay.
Shoot,
Shift Command 3 should allow you to either Shift Command 3 or Shift Command 4 will allow you to
Okay,
screenshot.
let me write
Yes,
that down.
someone
Thank you.
asked the question. Yes, you can paper trade crypto, and I do highly recommend it. Okay, let's get back to our watch list. I wanted to go over ZOM real quick. All right, so ZOM has earnings as well, and their earnings is going to be Friday the 2nd. So is that like next week? Yep, Friday. The 2nd is next week. So keep an eye out on ZOM to see if they're going to start getting volume, and if they're going to give us some nice trades. ZOM is well still above the 200 for me on my chart on the monthly. And they've been holding support pretty well right here at this support line. So around $96. They've been holding pretty well. And I'm just going to be following the trades leading up to Friday on ZOM because I think they'll probably get some good volume. When you look at them on the weekly chart, they did lose the 200 here. Give me one second. I want to hide. And they're coming out of an order block on the weekly, and they held up pretty well. Like this order block has been here since January 2022. So price basically pulled all the way back to, and we started to do a nice bounce back up and recovered the 200. And this can go. So what I'm watching now is that whether or not price can get back above the 12 on the weekly. And we have a nice order block here that they could run up to and hit sellers there on the weekly chart. So that's based, so that'll be like if they hit 115.58 on the weekly chart, we see that we'll hit some sellers there. We'll get some selling pressure. Ideally, again, we want to see them start to recover the 12, break the high of last week, and give us some nice movements ahead of earnings. So I'm going to keep ZOM on my watch. I just wanted to share to keep them on the radar in case they get some really nice movements ahead of earnings. My theory is that once we break 108.88 and we keep holding, we're probably going to come to this 112 area, which is a nice trade for ZOM. Contracts aren't crazy expensive. Last week they weren't. So keep them on your watch list for some nice movements. Again, I would measure it, just seeing if we can break Friday's high. And you kind of want to keep an eye out on Thursday's high since it was so close. We basically just had an inside candle on Friday, but it wasn't a red candle and it was a nice pullback. And then they had a nice recovery. So I'm going to keep ZOM as one of probably my top watches with SoFi. I'm not going to be too lost in a lot of stocks. It's probably going to be ZOM and then SoFi and of course QQQ for me. But just wanted to share that view of what I have on ZOM. You can again measure your high and your low. We've had a nice wolf chart inverse arc on our chart since April 17th. That gave us a nice signal that we can start entering positions because the trend was reversing and we were crossing back up. And so now that was a great signal because we've already reached the 12 EMA and price is holding there. So I like ZOM. I like them to come test this 200, which will give you close to 112. So we'll keep ZOM on our watch. A lot of people have their eyes on Palantir as well. And Palantir has earnings on May 5th on Monday. So wow, we can get some nice movements out of Palantir. As you can see, they've been marching. And so entry would have been again this inverse arc signal that we get, reclaiming your EMAs. So price for Palantir on a daily pulled back all the way to 200 weighted moving average, and price recovered and held there. And then we got back above my 12 EMA. And we've just been on a nice run with Palantir. I have a anchored VWAP from their earnings on the 4th. And so you can see where we lost it. And let me just hide my wolf chart for a second so you can see the anchored VWAP. So you can see where we lost this anchor VWAP from their last earnings. We came back and tested, but we could not hold it. And we just did the same thing, came back to it, and we were choppy here. But look at that nice breakout because price held it here. So if you follow an anchored VWAP, then you can see how from last earnings, price is doing really well from this earnings anchor VWAP I have on my chart. So we have some nice levels that we can follow on Palantir. Let's just take a look. So where we are now, what we want to see is a possible pullback to test some support. So I would hold and measure again previous day high and low. That's one of my favorite practices. And to see if maybe we come back and test this fair value gap before we make our next leg up. If we come back to this fair value gap and we start to look at maybe like the smaller time frames and see if we hold here, and that's going to be about at support of 106.55. If you start to see your candles, even from the 5-minute, 10-minute, whatever time frame you want to manage it from, hit that area around 106.55. If we hold, even if we come into this fair value gap, once you start seeing signals that we're reversing back up, following this fair value gap, you'll get a nice entry to catch the next leg up, if that's what Palantir is going to do. based on these marching candles, it does seem like we want to go up, and our ultimate high point would be that 125.41 that we reached. So, I mean, that could happen. Earnings could push Palantir. Their last earnings did really well. You can see the gap up from their last earnings, and we've been close that gap. So now we have a nice gap up. I'm sorry, gap down was closed. Like we gapped up and then we came back down to close that gap. And so now the movement up looks really good. So I'm not mad at these signals, especially because price held above this anchored VWAP and it's been holding above my EMA. So Palantir, another one that you can watch and probably get some really good successful trades out of it ahead of their earnings on Monday. And is it pre-market? Oh, no. So they're going to post earnings after hours. Take a moment to see what's in chat. 3 soldiers, yep. It hasn't been covered yet, but I will cover QQQ. I think there are some ETFs for yeah, there are ETFs for crypto that you can trade. And I think they come with options. I haven't touched them, but yeah, I think that's the case. So we have Lily. I've been following it a little bit. I've taken some trades on it, but let's get all this out the way so we can see where we are now. All right, so where could we go? So Lily had a really nice gap up. I think some news may have influenced how big of a gap up it was. But as you can see, price held support from the 200. Like we chopped around here a bit, but as you know, moves on Lily are big. And now we got this nice change of character signal once we broke 874.92, which was the high of this candle. That's a good confirmation of us moving up. We have a nice gap up to reach this order block here, and that's putting us at about 910. And they have earnings on the 1st. So Thursday pre-market, they'll post their earnings. This will definitely be another one to watch because you know when they move, they can move. And so I have a anchored VWAP from their last earnings here. And as you can see, as of this candle here, they are holding above it. So they've been choppy around the 200 and this anchor VWAP, but now they're holding above it. We get the change of character. So Lily is another one that you can get some nice movement. Where you're going to want to be mindful of is that we will hit sellers around 910. Yep, 910. So keep Lily on watch as well. There's not a big story other than if we're going to get these continuations, if we're going to hold this anchored earnings anchored VWAP, hold above the 200 on the daily, you have a nice gap that we need to fill here. And again, we'll hit sellers around 910 on Lily. I want to see. So they pull back to their 12 EMA on the monthly. Nice wick down. And we've held. So as you know, a lot of stuff tanked with tariffs and all that type of news from the political standpoint. But yeah, we're looking pretty good on Lily. We came back to this fair value gap on the weekly and just look how well we created a fair value gap. And so now price is holding. I think that we definitely can come test some highs on Lily ahead of earnings. I don't know what they'll do for earnings, but I think they have a nice chance to at least close some of the gaps. And we'll be watching 910 as that first test where we may get some resistance, significant resistance. Yeah, it was good news. Do you have a screener for gap downs? You may have to elaborate more on what you mean. First, I do have screeners. They follow RSI. All right. So for Lilly, again, I would follow them on the daily leading up to the day they post their earnings. Obviously, we don't want to take a risk on them possibly tanking for earnings, even though it's good news. You know that we can't really predict what's going to happen with earnings. So you'll hold any positions at your own risk. What I'll say is we should get some nice volume and movement ahead of their earnings. Baba. So where's this VWAP? Okay, so I guess I've been following a few stocks from their last earnings. Baba has a nice gap up. They can come here and test around 126. Let's see, 126.10. And I'll actually be watching to see if they can get back above their earnings VWAP. We've had a nice signal right at this order block, this bullish order block here, that we were looking pretty good. And then with price holding above the 200, your next target is going to be like your more shorter term EMA, like the 12 EMA here. And once price held, we're looking good on Baba. I would just measure the high and low. If we can keep marching up and breaking the highs of each candle, so we broke the high of Thursday's candle, do we break the high of Friday's candle, and then look to see if somewhere around here 123.81, can we hold that price? But the story for Baba is they have earnings on the 14th of May. And with us holding above the 12, you can see if we get another test of the 12 with any pullback. And if we start to hold there, then I would think our next leg up could be somewhere around this area here. Mind you, we are influenced by any news that can happen between China and the US. So you always keep that in mind. But hopefully, if nothing happens over after hours or anything like that, then your trade looks pretty good to test here. You just have to plan your entries from a smaller time frame. Let's see what they look like in the 4 hour. Okay, yep. So in the 4 hour, they're holding above their 200. This just looks like a really nice leg up. I think like we can come close the gap here on Baba, especially with earnings ahead. So I think if they can again start to break highs and show continuation from each previous day, then we're looking pretty good to come test in this area around 126. That's a nice $6 move. So I think a few people are asking about Baba. I would just again measure high and low, but the story is as long as we don't get any crazy news, I'm looking for them to at least get around 126 if the Bulls can hold that. If not, we're just going to keep testing new lows on Baba. On the monthly, they did hold above their 12. They came, they wicked here, and prices have been gapping up from there, moving right back up. Um, Actually, I kind of like the setup on Baba. Is anyone in a position on them? Or are we just curious to start a position? On the 2 hour, we would push back up to probably test around 123, 124, see if price can hold here. And then we'll get to that 126 area and then again possibly start to recover above our earnings anchor VWAP. So if you want to follow the anchor VWAP too, you can put a VWAP from their last earnings and see if price can get above that as well. Anyone curious on how to set up an anchor VWAP, I can show you real quick. So I'll just take this one off. All right, so you're just going to pull these tools, and these are all free from TradingView, and you'll have anchor VWAP, right? It's going to be in the projections, and then you'll just grab the anchor VWAP, and you're going to just sit it on the candle that you're following. Sometimes I may anchor VWAP from a big gap up candle, a big significant gap up. But most of the times I just like to follow what they're doing for earnings. So I'll just pop it here. And then so price will follow it. Even on like a smaller time frame, it's pretty flat, but you're looking for price to get back up to this target here. But I will say Baba has a really nice setup to come test 123, 124, and then get to that 126 area. And if you're looking at it even from a smaller time frame, there is not a lot of resistance. There's not a lot of like sellers, not a lot of order blocks that could stop it from the 15 minutes. So you can probably get some nice trades on Baba. Probably target, yep, 123, 124, and then around that 126 area would be my targets. If you get a nice little peek up to this 128 areas, that's good too. But that's what I would watch. Watch for prices to start to, if we're gonna get a bullish continuation, move up to 123 and then somewhere in this area close to 126 and probably above. How different is AVWAP? Oops, sorry. I lost my question. It shouldn't be too significant, not that much of a difference, except that the one that I'm following is specific to earnings. So that's the only difference, is that I will put a very specific target. It's not a historical one that's following price all the way through. Mine's truly just stops at where their last earnings was. And I just look to see if I'm going to follow an anchor VWAP from earnings, if we get price back above that. And that's all I'm looking at here. So on the daily, you can see I just tagged my anchor VWAP from here. On the wolf chart, you'll see that it's a further look back. For me, it's at earnings. So I'm just following their last earnings. I could have also put an anchor VWAP on this leg down right here. And I could have followed that because that was a pretty significant gap down. And so what I want to see from that large gap when price recovers and holds above it. And that would have been a nice signal too. And for me, if I was following it with my wolf chart, then my target truly would have just been right here, this 12 EMA and then price holding. But that would have been a nice signal that we recovered price above this particular anchor VWAP. So whatever you're looking to follow, in my case, it was earnings. And sometimes, like I said, if we have a big gap up or down, I'll pop in a more extra VWAP just to see where price lands there. And you could, I mean, some people I think may just even trade with their EMAs and follow an anchor VWAP. And so you can just take a look at what we're doing. So this is my earnings. I could change the color of it. And so I'll follow it a different color. And then you have my anchor VWAP from when we had the gap down. Just another tool, something to add to your arsenal. Again, we all trade differently, but it doesn't hurt to be able to know how to use different tools and use it to your advantage. And I know Mario is pretty big on teaching from anchor VWAP, so that got me interested in it, and I learned a lot about it. I do have I think a book saved on it as well. How does Hood look? I do have Hood on our watch list. Let's see. So again, Baba looks good if anyone's looking to trade them. All of these stocks with earnings, whether you get a movement down or up, that it should be good. Like you should get good volume. I'll show you my screener in a second. But Hood looks really good. I think I popped up an anchor VWAP from a gap up they had here. And I was following that for a while, and it looks like price came right back above it. But yeah, they look good. And they could actually come target a high around 54.84. Your signal to get in Baba was when we were able to hold above the 200, catch the 12, and then the 12 starts to curl back up. All good signals. And then my wolf trend moving average was also giving signals. So Hood has been a good entry for shares and then just positions ahead of their earnings. But I think if you're watching them, they have earnings on Wednesday, the 30th. And we have a nice target to the upside to test around 54.84. Now you'll look at your smaller time frames and see if there's any resistance ahead, but everything is saying we can get to 54 on Hood. I would follow the daily and see if price can get above this candle. So if we can break Friday's high, which is also an area, if you look back here, if we can hold and get above 49.88, that should give us a nice change right here, somewhere around here. So you see where we are? Like this could give us a double top and we can pull back. But what we want is price to start breaking the high of this candle, 49.88. And then from there, you got a nice target to 54, somewhere around $54. It looks good, actually. Now that is just going to be based on whether buyers will show up ahead of earnings or do we get some sideways trading. But ultimately, you want to see this price here break 49.88. If they can do that, and you can even set yourself an alert. And I'll just go ahead and set my alert while we're talking about it. And so it'll just bring my attention that, hey, if price starts to hold here, 49.88, then we're looking good for a nice gap up. Let's see what's on the 1 hour. Okay, here we go. We're choppy here. We have an order block that was created in February. So we've tested it here, rejected. We've tested it here. And so that's where we could possibly get that double top we were seeing on the daily, or we can get a breakout. So honestly, the cleaner trade is to see us break above this 51.17. And then you have a clean gap right here. That's a cleaner movement because when you go to a smaller time frame, you see my chart is picking up that order block. Because if you just keep looking to the left, we had a very significant sell-off where we lost this support. In fact, we lost it here, came back, tried to break it, failed, gapped up. And so it's just been choppy around this 49.88 area. So definitely watch that price. That's the price I would put on my target to see if we can break it. But your main target is going to be if hood can hold above 51.17. So I'm actually going to put that on my chart here. And then again, you don't have to stare at all this stuff. You just set yourself an alert. TradingView will let you know when the play is happening. I probably wouldn't touch hood until we get a nice break here because then I know I have a clean target. It just looks better here. So do I want to get in on this choppiness? No. The people that are winning are the people that got in much lower. And so none of this is really hurting them if they want to hold a little bit closer to earnings. But if you're trying to get in here, it just can get really choppy. Let's let this break 51.17. Let's let price hold that and confirm, and then we're good. That's my move. You make your own move. Yeah, so I personally just draw a line. Someone is drawing on my chart. How does that happen? Galaxy, someone on the Galaxy is marking up. Thank you. Okay, so on the 1 hour, I'm sorry, you were asking about setting the alarm. So if you just you see these dotted lines moving here. So wherever I want price to be set, so let's just say I want price at 54.02 or 54.06. I'm going to click this plus sign right, and then I'm going to go down to where it says draw horizontal line. That's what I do. Or you can do this. I just don't know if it leaves an alarm clock. When you just click on add an alert, it's just going to set it at these dotted lines on your chart, I think. Let me see. Oh, I don't even see a dotted line, so that's probably not it. Okay, there it goes. So now you can see I have this line on my chart, and it's still going to alert me. It's going to alert me when hood is crossing 53.17. Me personally, I do a horizontal line just because I'm visual with everything. And then I go here and it says add an alert. And so once we're getting price above it, and there's all kinds of things you can tweak here. I'm going to get a notification and I'm just going to hit create. And so I'll have this line on my chart, and I'm also going to get this alarm clock that tells me. Otherwise, you'll get this little dotted line. I think you can change, I don't know if you can change it from a dotted line or not, but that's how you set it. And I just recommend setting alarms whether you set it my way or not, just so you're not staring and waiting for a price and then you possibly miss it or whatever. Um, let's see. So it's 7:15. We'll try to get to QQQ first because I know a few people are waiting on that one. And then we'll see what else we can cover. I saw something pretty interesting on the monthly on QQQ that I don't really like. So, all right. So on the monthly on QQQ, I don't like a few things. I don't like that price hasn't recovered above the 12, but what I really don't like is this arc right here. So this is my wolf trend alert, basically an inverse. No, I'm sorry, this is an arc signal on the wolf chart, and we're getting this red EMA crossing the green, and that signal tells us that the trend is reversing. Like we've pretty much peaked up at our highest point on QQQ, and with this pullback and with us still not recovering the 12, I personally don't like it, and I need to see a little bit more to see if that's going to change. But right now, when I see an arc like this, and you can just take a look historically, when we got that arc here, this is what we did. We chopped around the 12 and then we pulled back more, and we didn't recover until we got the arc here. And this is our inverse arc signal. And then you can see we went on a really nice bullish run from there. So there's a few things on the monthly chart that has me a little worried. It does not mean that when we go down and manage our trades on QQQ, because most of us traded daily, we're not going to get any nice movements. I'm just saying that they still haven't proven themselves to me as being solid yet. If you're looking to swing longer calls or anything like that, I think we're getting some hype because of the earnings that have taken place and that will take place. We got Nvidia coming up. Nvidia, if the market doesn't respond well, they can pull QQQ down quite a bit. And we need price on the weekly chart to hold above the 200. But if we start losing this order block here, I've had a target like around 380-ish. So if we start losing around 413.94, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's just a bearish, that's like a bearish scenario that could happen. I'm looking around 380 as a potential leg down if we lose the 200, if we lose this order block here, and we wick below it, but price jump right back up. I think that was based on some of the news from the tariffs. Otherwise, I thought we were coming down for a minute and we could lose that. And so as you can see, the movements on the weekly hasn't really even given me a signal yet. Like we're not above the 12. So all you've really been able to do is catch a few nice, maybe a swing a day or two on QQQ. I've done it and been profitable, but otherwise, I just need a little bit more. Now, here's the scenario for bulls is that we can break the high of this candle and we can hold support somewhere around here, around 365. As long as we hold above 365 and start to break the high of this candle, I'm thinking we can come target still. We still have a high point around 380, 390-ish. Somewhere around here, test is 200 on the daily chart. So I would manage it just overall for the week, looking at how we're doing on the daily. But in the back of my mind, I know that we have a signal on the monthly that can play out. It may not even be May or even the next month. I just think we have to be careful being overly bullish until we get signals on those higher time frames that, yeah, for the year, we're ready to make our moves back up, get some next high points. So if I'm going to trade QQQ ahead of Nvidia's earnings, ahead of Palantir and all of these other stocks, I'm looking to target somewhere around 390.42. And so I would just, again, trade it looking for price to hold above 365.05 and also to break the high of 373. And if we keep doing that, we'll get that nice movement. And then we'll just keep trying to make our legs up to 390. On the 4-hour, I can see we have some resistance. So the cleaner trade here would be breaking 478. And that's why we've been choppy. We create an order block here on the 2nd. So if we can break the high of that 478.25 and clear this order block, then you have your gap up to around 486 and then around that 490 area. So it might be better for me if I'm watching it from my wolf chart. I'm going to trade it from the 4-hour, looking for that clean break here. Make sure that price on like the smaller time frames comes back to that level, which again is 478.25. If we're holding there, then I think we'll come back and test here around 386, 387, and then we'll try to get to that 490 area. I do see 490, especially if bulls can keep pushing us forward ahead of earnings for some of those bigger companies. I think Microsoft has earnings as well. We can get that leg up and try to get to 490. I love the Q, so that'll be my main watch. Oh, if I said 390, guys, I meant 490. Let's see. We will try to go over about 2 more. A lot of people like this one. They have earnings on the 29th of May. And let's get down. Oops. Let's see. I want to pull back a little bit to see the bigger picture. All right, so on the monthly chart, price is still above the 200, and we pull back quite a bit. We're technically starting to form an arc. The 12 EMA is curving down. They can still come back and test around 226 on a bearish scenario, somewhere around that area. Again, they don't have earnings until the 29th, so I don't really like the chart yet, except that if you're starting to buy shares, if you really like this company, if they're holding above the 200, you'll probably get some nice entries. I would still wait. Again, this is the monthly chart, so we're a bit spread out. I will wait to see if one price can hold above 258.79, and I'm just basing it off of where we had a change of character here and price pull back up a bit more before we recovered. If we can hold that price around 258.79, then I would look to see if we're going to come back and start to test getting towards our 12 EMA. It's a bit choppy because we have a bearish scenario here with this order, this fair value gap we created. And so it could be a bit of a battle here. If anything, I kind of see them coming here. They're so close, I just don't see why they wouldn't come and test this low point. But let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so what's holding them is this order block we have on the weekly. So when we did a gap up and buyers start to step in somewhere around August of 2024. Okay, so we had that gap up ahead of their last earnings, which was in August. Let's see. That's when buyers start to step in. So it created this order block, and so price came back to it on the weekly, and it's holding here. Still got a low point again of 226, or somewhere around 226 is what I'd be watching for that ultimate bearish scenario of what we need to hold. But with us holding here, you kind of just want to see if price will break maybe above 267, hold above 267, start to break the high of this candle at 277.30. We still got to break above 280 and then a test maybe around 291. The larger time frames just don't give the best signal yet for anything bullish, except maybe some nice pops because we touched this zone here. I still would need us to hold price and start to maybe break through this fair value gap. Otherwise, this may even be a nice entry point for puts once we get above here, about right here, around 293. maybe even a little bit more if they get into the 300s. But until they start to reclaim their EMAs, or I get this wolf trend moving average giving me a signal to buy, they still got a good low point they can come test. So that's it right there. I would just watch what's happening on the daily chart if you're looking to trade the week. They still have time. Oh, well, look at the daily. This is a good signal on the daily that can maybe lead to us having a good signal on the weekly. I just don't see it yet on the weekly. I don't like the weekly. But if you're trading it by day, this is nice that we are above the 12 EMA and price is holding here. So I would just wait to see if price can break above 272. And then if we come and test 277, I think ultimately try to get around maybe 290. Yeah, around 290. And then from there, I'd be cautious to see if we can keep holding above 290 to make the next leg up. But the daily is giving an inverse arc. So for those trading on the wolf chart, and you can see the signal here is that we're holding nice support here. And we're now above the 12. So a nice early entry point. We just will definitely hit some issues around, I think, 290.
Hey, Hustle, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go for it, Hal.
All right, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging. So can you flip back to the weekly real quick? I don't play Lulu, but when I watch you do other tickers, it helps me when I see my thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that fair value gap, you're saying that even though on the weekly we are downtrending, right? And we have
Mm-hmm.
that order block is preventing us from going lower at this point.
At this
That
point.
possibly see a bounce up to that order to that fair value gap. Now, what is that fair value gap? Is that 290 when it starts?
Yeah, I'm looking at it at 291.76. I'm measuring it off the candle here because with the fair value gap, you're going to look at the candle before this significant gap down and the candle right after it. And so that's your gap, your fair value gap. So if you look at it, it's this low of this candle and the high of this candle.
So the
So I
low,
would be looking for price to come at least to 291.76. Again,
okay,
we got to see it prove itself, and then maybe we'll start to see our EMA start to curl up. I don't
okay,
see it yet on the weekly, but we do have a support that's been here since August of 2024 that is holding us up. And so as long as we don't lose under 226.01, I mean we're good. The daily's already given us a nice signal, and that
that's
could
what
just
I was.
yeah. I
So
think
what
it
is that
means that
gate?
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just because sometimes when I look at the weekly or something like that, that's headed downward, and then we look at the daily where we have the wolf confirmation to turn up, right?
Uh-huh.
So my question is, with that daily chart and the wolf confirmation system, and then we're talking about on this chart where we have possibly two, if it bounces up to the fair value gap about 290 something. Is that what?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm on my phone, I can't really see. So, but on the daily, isn't that 290? Isn't that the same 290? But we just can't see the fair value gap because it's on the daily.
Yeah, so that means that this sell-off on the weekly was pretty significant that it created that fair value gap. But when you bring it down to the daily, now remember, yes, we're in a downtrend on the weekly, and even when you look at it from the monthly, but what's holding us is this, and what we want to continue to hold us is this order block here.
Okay.
Because you can be comfortable to say, hey, maybe I'll start building my positions here. You don't go heavy because what if we lose here, that 226 level? So then you have to plan where your stop loss will be and all that stuff. But when you start to see the daily start to give us those signals that confirm that this is holding us up for now,
Mm-hmm.
and we've already started to reclaim above the 12, you got to see that we'll probably get to like that 281 and then two that 281 area and then around I think I said what 290. You can see it
Mm-hmm.
here. You can see it here from this gap down and this candle here. And then, as you know, we kind of just did another leg down. So I'm not mad at what I see on the daily. And I know why we're getting it before we even hit this is because we have it already on the weekly where we have hit an order block and buyers can hold it up, and it is so far. So your strike price, if you're going to get into it, you want to try to keep it around the two, I guess 280. 280, 290 range is probably where you want to keep your strike. I mean, but if we break that, if we start holding even that, we still like we'll clear that fair value gap on the weekly. I've seen stocks do it as long as we get the right momentum. It can just kind of get maybe a little choppy here, but it can clear this, and then it can just make the next leg up, which for us is going to be right at this 12 EMA, and then we'll push to on the weekly the 200. So again, yeah, it looks bad on the weekly, but we've seen a lot of stocks in recent time hit order blocks on the weekly as they were closing gaps from their big gap up, and they held so far. I think we even seen it in Microsoft. So as long as we're going to hold price here, you can't be too scared to, at least if you're a interested person in this stock, to potentially put a little money in, as far as shares or positions ahead of earnings. You just got to have a stop loss, and you got to make sure that we don't get under, and this is more of a long hold position. We can't get under 226. Now, if you're a day trader and you're just looking to trade these short term, you have a nice signal to get, to at least break the high of this candle as a target, 272, and then you can look to do 277, and then potentially you'll get that gap up to 280.
And when you say strike price, that means your price to get out.
Yeah, because what you want with a strike price is you want it to, well, that's your target for exit. Or, if you're seeing a nice continuation, at least you slide your stop loss up to hold some profit. Or if you have multiple contracts, you start to trim, maybe take some money off the table and let the runners do their business. But ultimately, those are your targets from a shorter term. Long term, if you're like a shareholder, you can see that we're in a weekly order block and prices holding there. You can start building a position. You don't want to throw all your money without all of the signals happening on the weekly chart. But so far, it looks good. I mean, anyone that has a different opinion, this is a study group too, so I want to hear from you. But I see it. I see a nice target around 280.
And what is it at right now? Because I can't see that, Hustle.
So they closed Friday at 267.90.
Okay.
And what I would assume is that if people are building their positions ahead of earnings, which is again next month, then that'll start to give us the moves back up, because let's see what they did last earnings. So ahead of their last earnings, their earnings was in December. Ahead of it, you can see buyers start to pop it up a little bit. And then they had a huge gap of their last earnings. So that's something to watch. In fact, I'll toss in a VWAP here, and I'm going to delete this one. Okay, so I have a VWAP, this orange line, and again, that would be another target is if we start to get to the supply zone. So this order block here. If we get here, we're going to hit sellers, and if we conquer this, then we'll just keep making our legs up, but we'll start to see our EMAs crossing up, and that scenario of us getting back to some all-time highs. That's the story on Lulu.
Pretty, I just have a quick question before you move on. You
Yeah.
keep referencing the 290. Thank you. You keep referencing the 290 number. Can you point at the candle that is giving you that indication? I'm just trying to understand where that number came from. It was on the daily.
290, I thought I got it from the weekly. Let's see. 291 I got from the high of this candle on the weekly fair value gap.
And you're saying if we can overcome that and get into the fair value gap, overcoming the fair value gap.
Yeah, so when we hit here, this is where you want to really be cautious. And that's the bullet scenarios that we have a continuation and we hit this fair value gap. Well, a candle can start to come into this fair value gap, but then ultimately what you would probably look to see is we get a candle or so in here, and do we overcome it, or do we start and clear it? Because it'll just basically clear the fair value gap, and we'll overcome it, and we'll start to make our leg up probably somewhere here. But otherwise, you're going to see candle come to it and then possibly start to get that pullback. and then you just target your nearest support levels from the pullback. But again, you want to see a candle get to it, and then your reaction in theory is that it'll pull back.
Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes on the higher time frames, the candle will just tap the fair value gap and then it'll disappear, which I was surprised by that. I've seen that twice since Friday because I was paper trading crypto over the weekend and I saw it happen again. Literally just tap the fair value gap on the high time frames and disappear. So it was interesting to see.
Yes, and sometimes again, it really just is based on who has control, right? Like a bulls can clear this right out, and I've seen it happen. Or
Mhm.
because this there's just not enough volume there. One
Mhm.
second, my laptop is about to die. I thought I had it charging. One second. Okay, yeah, we're good. So once
At that
price,
point, I would have expected the candle to push all the way through it, but it didn't. It just kind of tapped it and it disappeared. That was surprising
yeah,
because
it
the
could
price
happen.
never went to the top level. Yeah, it never went to above it.
It could
Yeah.
happen. Again, this is with this indicator, you can see it go away. But ultimately, what I've seen a lot of times happen too is as soon as we touch it, especially for one on the weekly, we're going to get a
Mhm.
reaction in the direction that we would expect, right? So if we hit a bearish fair value gap, we're going to get a reaction where we can pull back. Now, if momentum and high volume is in favor of us pushing further up, they're just going to clear it. So we're just going to get those candles that start to clear this out. So it can happen, especially on smaller time frames. They can clear fair value gap easily. But on the weekly, I pay attention to those for possible. Like I showed you, I forgot which stock it was we were looking at earlier. It was a bullish scenario. So once price pulled back to it, and we'll pretend this is green, then you're looking for your entry for calls. Honestly, you're not looking to short it from there because if you get a weekly fair value gap or building positions for possibly some shares, I like a weekly fair value gap. So I'll watch this one because now I'm curious to see ahead of earnings. Though again, bulls could just clear this out and keep marching further on. It could just get choppy here
Why
as
do
we
you
hit
like
some resistance
why do you like the fair value gap hustle?
because it gives you a nice entry point. So let's say you miss your entry, right? And even on like a 15-minute time frame, I'll go to the QQQ chart just because we get those a lot.
That would be for a put, right?
In that case, yeah, I would be looking for a put. Now, you don't just jump into a put. That's just one thing that you can base your trade off of.
Okay.
So if you look at this fair value gap we created here, right? And look what we did. We came in it, right? We fell into all of this. This is all support in theory
Mm-hmm.
because this is a lot of buy orders from a huge gap up. We did not clear that fair value gap. We just started pushing in it, and eventually we get a nice leg up. And so we've created a few fair value gaps. If
Right.
you don't have the wolf chart, guys, just it doesn't change the fact that you can actually just go in your chart and set your own fair value gaps, right? So we'll just grab a rectangle. We're looking for this huge gap up here. How do you draw your fair value gap? Is you're going to base it from the candle here to here. You can change the color, make it green and fancy, like you have your own indicator. But what you're following is just these huge momentum moves up. And now we know we have a gap up. We know that we're going to have a lot of support here to work down. Now, I think it was last week or the week before, I've seen some stocks like Microsoft the week before, or maybe 2 weeks ahead, cleared I think it was like a 3 hour time frame fair value gap, which was a bullish one. They cleared it and chopped all the way down and started clearing actually some order blocks because of the selling pressure on that stock. I think it was based on news. But you can see fair value gaps being created when we have these large moves up. So now we have a fair value gap created because of how fast things moved in that last 15-minute candle. So then price could potentially come back and tap it. And then what we're looking for is if we tap it, or even if we fall into it, do we start to work our way out of it? Otherwise, I mean, it would be a lot of choppiness, as you can see here, until we get direction, and the direction was to move back up. Next time we come back to it, it's not going to hold as support. At some point, it's going to have to be, it's going to fail. Now, there are videos, guys, that I could share that explain this a lot better, but I do love fair value gap entries. You just have to also wait for your other confirmations. Like if you're following EMAs, we need to make sure that we start to hold above some EMAs too. But if I see a fair value gap entry, I could have actually got in this one and it would have kind of failed because it wasn't such a significant gap up. It probably would have faked me out. Because did we get this gap up? This didn't happen until Thursday. So if I would have started my position here thinking that we were going to hold, I would have got stopped out. It
Yes.
just can happen.
So is a fair value gap similar to like what we call the gap up and the gap down?
You could say that, Hal, because we're going to come back and test it.
Right.
Price
Okay.
is going to come back to it.
Okay. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
price is going to come back to it. So eventually it will come back to it. It will test it. And it doesn't mean that it can't fall in it and start to execute some of these orders. It can get a little choppy. And then once we've tested it and it no longer really can hold us too much more in support. But it isn't a place that I would be scared to say, hey, if I see that we're holding, I'm seeing these wicks, I would start to think I can build a position. But actually, the selling pressure just took over. And we didn't get that gap up until Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Thank you, Hustle.
You're welcome. So we're at 7:41, guys. I'm gonna wrap up here. I'm sorry if I didn't get to cover every stocks. Maybe we can do a midweek video where I look at some more on the watch list and I'll upload that for you guys. I did record this session, so what I'll do is take it and upload it to YouTube and then I'll share that so anyone that wants to look back. And then if you still have some questions that you want us to cover in the study group, I could do like maybe a midweek study group where we look a little bit more into charts for learning and helping you guys to understand some of what I'm seeing too. Yeah, I'll put the recording up and I'll share it in each of the Discords. All right, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
I'll chat with you guys this week. Have a good week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night.